Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this session. Hopefully, we'll have some good content for you. We've done some conversations and prepped a little bit beforehand. We hope to give you some stories to help you connect cybersecurity with the business and with your broader supply chain goals, so that you can take away some practical, actionable knowledge when you leave the room today. So I will allow everybody to introduce themselves here individually, because I think they all have interesting backstories and perspectives that they bring into it from their backgrounds, which are very, very different and divergent, and I would not do it justice. So we'll kick it off. Julien, do you want to introduce yourself and give a little bit more information about what you do?
Sure. So Julien Bertolini. So I'm an IoT expert working for the Volvo Group. And I'm on this domain since the beginning of the IoT, so for a long time. And I'm going to talk about the challenges that we have at the Volvo Group around supply chain.
Good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Ilya, and I'm representing Carlsberg. As Bill said, it's about beer, but not only beer. Also bottling PepsiCo, bottling Coke, water, and other craft products and energy drinks, and so on. And before this discussion, actually, we had a quick chat and trying to understand what is the supply chain, and that term can be interpreted differently. In some companies, it is like purely the logistics side, and some companies include manufacturing in the supply chain term. So I'm more of a manufacturing expert, currently covering asset care of Carlsberg in Western Europe, and have a long experience in production and in brewing and partially in logistics.
Thank you, Bo. My name is Mark Kraling. I'm a solutions architect with Wabtec, based out of Florida, in the United States. About 5 years ago, Wabtec acquired GE Transportation. And since I've been speaking at this conference for 8 years, every once in a while I get to a slide like this, and it's my old company logo. So formerly I did work for GE Transportation, but again, now I work for Wabtec. Wabtec is a leading manufacturer for freight, rail, passenger, transit rail, et cetera. So I'm going to bring the experience and talk about supply chain from that standpoint. Again, I've been speaking at this conference about the last 10 years, which is why some of the other things come up. And I'm not really happy that I have to sit next to the Carlsberg guys. Usually, I can say, I make locomotives, and it sounds really cool, and I'm the coolest cat on stage. But now, I'm on a panel with a beer guy, so that doesn't work very well. But anyway, Bo, appreciate you inviting me to be on the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here today. So when we think about supply chain, a lot of times in cybersecurity, we're thinking about the supply chain of our software, the provenance of the hardware, whether or not anything's been interfered with. But in the industries and the companies that these three represent, we're really talking about something much broader. It includes those, certainly, but it also includes the reliability of getting products where you need them, so that you can bring them in and start manufacturing them into the final goods. It includes, who your suppliers are, how you ensure the provenance of physical goods, how to know how to track and trace them as they move around the world from your suppliers into your manufacturing facilities or around the transportation network. And so we want to have a broader discussion, because I think one of the most interesting things to me about this is the amount of new technology that's going into traditional supply chains that makes it so much more efficient, cost efficient, so much greater capabilities to do just-in-time delivery or stockpiling in case you need to build up a backlog of components, or all of these other things that relate to better ability to get products through your manufacturing process, so that you get out with more products more quickly with less cost, so that you improve safety in the plants and in the transportation network, so that you ensure reliability, dependability of critical key components when you need them, so you don't have shortfalls, and have maintenance issues when they come up, so you can do predictive maintenance. So there's so many of these capabilities that are enabled by technology, and yet at the same time, that technology imports potentially new risks. As one of my friends who works in medicine and connected healthcare says, as we seek to treat existing pathologies, existing diseases, we should be sure to avoid inadvertently introducing new ones. And I think that that's one of the big themes of this conversation as we talked about it is there are great new capabilities. There are also new adversaries and accidents that must be anticipated and avoided if we're to realize those. So I want to just kind of start out with a broad question to each of you. Can you talk through the type and the level of value that these new technologies in your supply chain, however you define supply chain, are able to bring to your business, to your organization, and why you're pursuing those technologies, those new capabilities, so doggedly? And Julien, maybe start with you.
Yeah, so if I can start, so Volvo is one of the main truck manufacturer, and one of our big challenge around supply chain is because each truck is unique. So it means when a customer is ordering a new truck, we have to build one specific engine, one unique cabin, but also you have to build axle, so a lot of different components. And we need all these components to be at the assembly, in the final assembly factory at the right time. So that's a big logistic challenge, and we have big challenge around supply chain for that. Also because we have many suppliers. So in order to improve our supply chain, we have a vision, a big ambition at Volvo. We want to track a lot of assets. So it could be finished product, it could be components, but it could be also different kind of assets like packaging, like forklift, like any tools in the factory. And in order to do that, we have to introduce a lot of new technologies. So it could be UWB for ultra-wideband, it could be BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy, of course GPS, and a lot of other technologies. So that's a big challenge for us, and I can explain later our strategy to do that.
Sure. Ilya?
Okay, our industry is not as car manufacturing where you build fewer things and more custom. For us, the numbers are much bigger and the speed of manufacturing is much higher, and it's about efficiency, cost, consistency of every single unit. And something we are working on currently is actually exploring the data. I think in the last 10 years, everyone is talking about data like never before, and especially recently after the hype of AI, ChatGPT, and large language models. And we realized that we have quite some raw or low-level data all over the place in the ERP systems, in the machines, in their PLCs used for automation, various production tools, even sometimes old school Excel sheets or more advanced digital tools. And now, we are thinking, how can we extract all these data into kind of one system, and how could we connect it and analyze it and utilize it in a cross-functional sense for the benefit of the business. I think all the industries use problem-solving tools and have their continuous improvement journeys. We think currently we are not utilizing the vast majority of the data which is already available. And if we give this power, to our operators and to our colleagues and employees. If we give this power of artificial intelligence, we can use, interpret, analyze, find correlations and causations, and bring much more improvements in the production process with that than we were doing before.
So, Bo, appreciate the question. For me, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience, this all happened for us when our OT people like me that just want to get a problem solved had to now deal with IT sorts issues, which means, oh, you got to follow this cybersecurity standard, you got to follow this, you got to follow that. So my problems, and again, this is speaking very specifically, a freight locomotive weighs 400,000 pounds, translating 180 metric tons. It sits on a rail and it hauls freight. One of my problems is we have customers that lose locomotives. Yeah, I said that right. A locomotive disappeared and they don't know where it is. You can't take it home. It's €3.5 million investment in a freight locomotive, and where to go? So from a very simple product that we did, now 20 years ago, it was a GPS receiver. Basically, it'd report back every once in a while where it was so that they could find it. Right now, you have to assume there has to be cellular coverage, et cetera. There's a lot of logistics nightmares with that in itself. But that was probably our first experience connecting something. Up till then, we didn't need to connect it. Now, I'm sure you guys remember everybody said, oh, we have to connect everything. Connect everything, connect everything. And then you say, why? I don't know why. You'll figure that out later. Well, if you approach something from an OT standpoint, you want to fix problems. So tell me what the problem is, and then I'll come up with the right solution. Whereas from an IT standpoint, and again, a lot of people in this room that are in IT, I'm not casting aspersions, but now all of a sudden you have to do this. This is the standard, and it's hard to find the value, right? I've got customers that lose locomotives, and now you're telling me I have to follow this stringent standard, et cetera. So again, I think, Bo, kind of that intersection of OT and IT, I think especially recently, is one of the things that drives a lot in our supply chain management.
Yeah, I want to pull on that thread a little bit because, when you think about locomotives and trains, it's not just, hey, it's bringing food to market or it's bringing some product. You haul hazardous waste around, around continents. There's real consequences if you lose one of those, and I'm sure that the hazardous waste cars are protected more so than some of the others because the costs are higher. But do you have any examples of where maybe a car got lost or maybe some other thing throughout your supply chain, your logistics train, popped up where if you had had some of these new technologies and capabilities, you could have solved it? Or where having those technologies and capabilities, maybe positive train control or whatever, allowed you to avert some type of a catastrophe?
Yep, so very clearly, you threw a lot at me, so I'm just going to pick one specific example, if that's okay.
Yeah.
First and foremost, at WebTech, the safety and security for our customers is absolutely paramount. So I may flippantly say from an OT standpoint, oh, we lose locomotives. Trust me, there is nothing more important to us than making sure our customers have the capability of making sure that whatever they're hauling is safe, that the equipment that they're using is safe, and that's secure. Absolute number one. So we talked a little bit about tracking, you said, with rail cars. I'm going to go back a little ways. Rail cars have something on them called AEI tags. And I forget what AEI stands for, but I do remember that A stands for animal. Because farmers way back 1930s, 1940s, put tags on cows so they know how many cows were in that field versus that field so they know where to put the feed. If you have a whole bunch of cows over there, you know it. Anyway, they would pass through these gates to go to the different fields, and there would be an RFID tracker that would basically read them and say, okay, I know that cow's over there. Well, they applied it to rail cars too. So in the United States, all the rail cars on both sides of the car, they have these things called RFID readers, so you know where a car is. Now, a lot of the reason for that is because rail cars are not powered. There's no power on board a rail car. It's all driven by pneumatic braking. So that is kind of a passive way to figure out where your cars are. Now, I will certainly say for things that are hazardous material, hazardous cargo, there's a whole different set of standards for that. Okay, RFID is not going to quite cut it for that. But from a tracking standpoint, using something as simple as something that works for cows and you put it on a rail car and it's cheap and it's easy, now you know exactly where your cars at least last passed through and what time and what day. So a little bit different for logistics.
Yeah. And Ilya, Julien, can you think of examples where having some of this new supply chain technology that's being rolled out has helped solve a real business issue, like trying to do a little bit of storytelling and connect some of this with some of the things the audience might really resonate with?
Yeah, so there are several examples where if you don't have the right component at the right time, you will not build the truck, so it will be late. So it's a big issue for us because we have commitments for our customers. And we have also some example where you don't have enough packaging at the right place at the right time, so you have to stop the production line. And this is a big issue, and it costs a lot of money for us. So we can solve that with really simple technology. So that's why it's super important for us, and that's why we are investing a lot of money for deploying this kind of technologies for all kind of assets at Volvo.
Yeah.
Well, I just realized that I'm a bit like a beer in between truck and the train, and then my examples are a bit different. Actually, I appreciate I think the topic of safety that you, Mark, raised, and you know, when you think you're producing beverage, like there's nothing risky with that. In fact, there are quite some risks. First of all, for own employees, because we use materials as ammonia, we have steam boilers, and we have other dangerous things. And by the way, the ammonia release would harm the society around. But we should not forget that we are producing actually the food, the beverage, something that people can consume. And like in your industry, Mark and Julien, in ours, safety comes first, but when we talk of safety, we also talk of not only occupational safety for the employees, but also the food safety of our products. And in this regard, you know, like there are so many examples in the recent decades. If you just imagine a simple glass bottle. This is a plastic bottle, but the glass bottle, you know, in some markets, the glass bottles are returnable, so they are cleaned and then filled many times. Back in time, there was a person sitting maybe 30, 40 years ago and just watching visually if the bottle is clean. And we are counting that the bottle is clean. And it's not just, you know, a hygienical thing. If you have a fragment of glass, even a small fragment of glass inside the bottle, that can lead to a lethal case. So these days we have sophisticated machines with plenty of sensor which scan the bottle from all the angles and can see what is inside. Are there remains of liquid inside? Is there a part of glass? Are there traces of chemicals? And so on. And when I talk of you know, occupational safety, when you produce beer, you ferment it. The yeast eat the sugars, and they give you the alcohol and the CO2. And it was kind of normal in the past, in the history of brewing, that once in a while, someone has the experience of, you know, inhaling high concentrations of CO2, which actually killed people. It was once in a while normal, 50, 70 years ago, that from time to time you have a fatal accidents. Now it's a completely different story. We have fixed sensors, we have alarms, we have mobile sensors, and we have other ways of preventing this and other issues. And now our objective is, we are not even talking about any tolerance to fatal accidents. We want all so-called lost time accidents to be not to exist, to be zero. This is the objective of every plant, and all those things they achieved partially with the change of behavior and culture, but mostly with the technology.
Okay, thank you. So from tracking trains, including those that carry hazardous waste which can harm a community, to making sure that you protect your customers when they're buying something and it's totally clean, and that the workers in the factories don't die from some process issue, all the way to ensuring that every truck you deliver is delivered on time with the right components, so that you know that when it's on the road it's safe and effective. These are clearly very strong cases for why more instrumentation, more capabilities in the supply chain can be key drivers beyond just the bottom line, but actually to accomplish some of the broader societal goals that we have and obligations that we have as companies. Let's flip it over really quickly and talk about the line from Spider-Man, which I watched on the plane on the way over here again. With great power comes great responsibility. Putting those amazing capabilities in the hands of people who can deploy them in order to carry out those things. There also has to be some commensurate risk management from the perspective of, if you put software in something, it becomes hackable. If you connect it to any kind of a network or radio frequency, someone can reach out and touch it. It's exposed to accidents and adversaries that it wasn't before. So are there cases where the lack of cybersecurity capabilities that come along with those new technologies have caused harm? Or are there cases that you can think of where having those cybersecurity capabilities built in has actually avoided harm? Ilya, do you want to go first?
I think I have a good example of that one. Maybe it's not that fresh back in time, maybe 10 years ago, but something important about cybersecurity. Working in manufacturing and producing 10 years ago, I didn't hear much about cybersecurity. You could hear sometimes watching news that something was hacked, some data leaked, something happened, but it was not really our business. It was not something we thought something that is risky for us. Until one event which happened in my previous company, also brewing company. We got an alert that one of our factories stopped for several weeks, like completely down, because the virus entered most of their production automation systems and the computers that were running it. So that was somehow not fully separated from the web, and there was an attack, and almost all the systems and few departments were impacted. And on top of that, at that time, there were no strict procedures on the backups. There were some backups, of course, but quite old ones, and after some hardware upgrades, they're not really functional anymore, and so on and so on. So the stoppage of a factory is a huge loss for the business. That happened in the peak season, the exciting moment when everyone wants to have beer, especially in Greece. And after that, I could see a complete shift of the mindset in the company. Yeah? Those things which are running our machines, and again, we have the software which is running ammonia plant, and that can release, in theory, if if you want, you can release ammonia, or in theory, if you want, if you have a bad purpose, you can create an explosion somewhere. So there was a decision to protect these systems from all kind of interference, from all kind of possible attacks and so on. And that, I think that was a lesson for all of us.
No, just, yeah, thanks, Bo. Just to add to that, factory shutting down, that's bad. That's definitely bad. Train stopping is bad too, right? If you have a train stopped on the track, it's not like other trains can easily just go around them. So, Bo, back to your question, the way we typically approach something is if it's a safety system, we isolate it absolutely as much as we possibly can, just to limit the threat vectors and the threat matrix. So you can imagine, again, I hate to bring up yet another example, but you've seen train signals and lights, I'm sure. If it's green, the conductor and the engineer, they know to go. Green means go track speed. If the light turns to yellow, yellow means caution, which means you need to slow down. You might be stopping at the next signal. It might be red. And of course, red is stop. You absolutely must stop before that signal point. Very clearly a safety system, right? Can you imagine if you showed a train, whether it was freight or passenger, green, and you meant to show red? Unbelievable, right? That would be, so I have no example of that because we don't do that, right? But this signal is also not connected to the internet, right? So I think for WabTech, it's for us, I hate when we mix, I always hate it in a meeting when people mix safety and security, and they may say, oh, that's a safety item, and then they go down a security route. Or they say, oh, that's a security item, and then they go down a safety route. They are separate, but the way we approach things from that standpoint, it makes it so we follow the same sort of process, right? So whether it's safety or security, they're both so important that you just can't ignore them. So we will have third parties do assessments, things like that, just like we do for a safety system with security. So again, I think it's the way you approach a particular problem, and if it's safety, keep it isolated, right? Don't connect it. Yeah. I know it's an IoT Congress, right? We're supposed to connect everything, but that's one where we probably should avoid that one. So.
Well, one of my other friends sometimes says, if you can't afford to protect it, you can't afford to connect it. And so a viable strategy for allowing the rest of your organization to be connected is if it's too high risk, just take it offline, right? That can contain any harm that might happen. And then instrument the heck out of everything else that's not a safety system, for instance. And then you can integrate it more fully once there's more maturity in the industry and the standards and practices. Maybe you'll think about putting it online. But I think that's a perfectly viable strategy. Also, manual backups for things, so that if the computer systems are down for a virus or a worm or for some other issue, then you can still at least operate in a degraded capacity, but in a safe way. Julien, what about you?
So yeah. Of course, at Volvo, we take the security really seriously, and we have a super strong and super powerful cybersecurity department. And just to illustrate that, I would like to tell you a quick story that happened a few years ago. So a plant manager came to me and said that he was tired about the stock numbers that were not accurate, and because it requires a lot of manual inventories and a lot of manual operations. So I told him that I can install some scanners, and it could be quite easy to do automatic inventories at a loading dock. So we started that, and I've selected hardware to do that. It seems to be so easy to do. And then I wanted to plug this device to the network, and at this point, the cybersecurity said, okay, you have to follow the process and to do a security review. And it took me 6 months to be able to connect this device. So at this point, I've understood that I cannot do that at scale. I have to take another strategy. So that's big constraints, but at the end, that's a good thing, because we have found a good strategy to do that at scale and limiting the risk of cybersecurity.
Yeah, and I've got a couple more questions I'd like for, if you're in the audience and you have some, we'll have time for some questions in a bit. Okay, so cybersecurity can be a drag on your processes that help save lives, help improve your efficiency, but they don't have to be. And one of the things that was common when I was talking to you all about this is that you found effective ways to manage cybersecurity risk without undue burden on business operations. And I'd like you to go around and maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you found to be effective at managing to do that. And maybe in your case, 6 months is an appropriate delay for the type of thing that you're doing compared to the risk of if you get it wrong. Or maybe there's a different way. But I'm curious to hear just how you found you can make that balance and work well across all of those disparate teams. And maybe Julien, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so if we want to connect, I don't know, several hundreds or even several thousands devices to the Volvo network, the cybersecurity department don't want to have all this amount of entry points to the network. So how we do that? We are using what we call a tracking hub. So that's a cloud component that is getting all the messages from all our devices. And then we have one entry point to the Volvo network. So we can really control and monitor this entry point. It's a lot easier. And of course, after that, that's not the only measure that we have, but that's the main strategy that we use to scale. And of course, we have to rely and to trust our partners. So we are building strong partnership with a solution provider in order to be sure that the hardware is secure and they are using the state-of-the-art of cybersecurity, because we are not cybersecurity specialists for all devices. I mean, that it is almost impossible. So, so that's why it's super important to have a good strategy, to have process and to monitor what you are doing, but it's also super important to have strong partnership with the vendor that you can trust.
Well, throughout the development of actually cybersecurity as the science and all these learnings, one of it I mentioned, there were so-called company standards introduced, which explain how should things be ideally set up in terms of automation, but also IT. Yeah, there's the process part of it, but that's also security on, purely in the data systems. And what is happening now? Every new investment or upgrade is designed in full compliance to the standard. But also, we do regular audits of the existing assets and the systems. And then there could be a thing built 15, 20 years ago, which is not compliant anymore. And then we have to take a decision, or we upgrade it to protect it, or we change it. And that discussion, the kind of agility and maybe pace sometimes in implementing the solution versus those requirements. I had also a bit of opposite experience when we were introducing a couple of digital solutions, and part of that was for the employees from their mobile devices, like maintenance mobile, so that they can do maintenance easy and quicker without actually going into SAP plain maintenance module each time, avoiding this, interface of ERP, which is not always quick. And we honestly had significant delays, like Julien mentioned, 6 months, 8 months, just because we had to build systems in a compliant way to comply with all the security protocols and so on. Because you have the app provider, then you have the ERP, and then we have our systems. And I'm not a specialist on that, but apparently there were so many things to set up. It was a bit frustrating for the users, but in the end, we know it should be like that. Otherwise, the risks are too high. And finally, now it's working.
Yeah, Bo, so to answer your question, I say this all the time. I am a software engineer. That's the way I started my career. That's the way I was educated. That's what I think that I'm good at. But of course, now I'm doing system architecture, so it's a little different. So when you write safety critical software, it is definitely way different experience than any other type of software that you write. There's a very specific procedure. There's a very specific process. There's a way you do variables. There's a way you don't do things. It's just as much as the way they are to do things. So I think for us, when cybersecurity really became, okay, now this is a very serious deal, we've got to do something with this. For us, it became part of our development process. So it's not something you can do later. From the ground up, when you're designing a system, like when I put a system design together, when the software engineer implements it, cybersecurity has to be done on the front end, just like safety, critical software. So we have various standards that we follow. National standards, IEC, NIST standards, et cetera, for all of our development processes. And in addition to that, just like we do with safety critical software, we'll have third-party companies coming in and do assessments. Not only just looking at the software and saying, yeah, this complies, this doesn't comply, check the box here. No, what about your entire process? Are you guys doing the right things that other companies are doing to make something that's, let's call cyber secure? So I think it's for us, I think, Bo, to answer your question, it was probably more natural just because we were used to doing safety critical software where it's very, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. So when the cybersecurity requirements came along, we were comfortable putting those in, again, into the entire design of our product.
Yeah. Okay, I'll have one more question, and then we'll get to some of your questions in the audience. So the year's 2025, as we all know from the Terminator films, Skynet has happened, and we have the ability to go back in time. Let's just say. So if you could go back in time to 10 years ago when you started on this journey of modernizing your supply chain management, of integrating cybersecurity, whatever point that was, and give yourself one message from the future, what would that message be? Mark, I'll start with you.
Sure. The very first thing just popped into my mind, Bo, is root of trust. For every data element that you get, where is it coming from? Where's its destination? I think when we look at, especially with supply chain, and our customers are hauling freight from all over the world, multiple suppliers, multiple weights, multiple sizes, it may be hazardous, it may not, and it's all getting put onto one train. And that customer has to move that across the country, maybe drop some cars off here and there. But where is all that stuff coming from? Who made it? Did they do all the right things when they put things in the container? So for me, quite simply, I believe I would have a better appreciation of how things should be architected and done if you really look at root of trust for all data elements, cargo, et cetera.
My message would be also probably connected with the trust, but more in the connection with artificial intelligence. We are using it more and more, and we are looking for various use cases. At the same time, we know that AI can trick us. Sometimes it's like a student who came to pass the exam unprepared and trying, to invent an answer which would sound like something like truth, but maybe not. And we've seen the examples. Doctors using that, and and now we are looking to use it in manufacturing. And I had recently an experience when I had quite a simple task for the ChatGPT, and I was using a little bit of a more advanced model which could reason. And I tried to improve the first output, but it was getting worse and worse and worse each time, and I could not get the same result which I received the first time, which I didn't save, hoping I will get better. And I like, to use AI in a sense of augmented intelligence. Still, we have to be in control. We have to have verification mechanisms. We have to be very clear, and I'm sure there will be safety procedures on that in the future. Where can we use it and where we can't and shouldn't. So my message from the future would be augmented intelligence, still human first.
Good.
Yeah, that's a big question, but something that I can see and that we could regret is we have a lot of data all over our factories and even outside the factories. And sometimes it's quite complicated to use it because we don't have all the context. So if I have one message, like 10 years ago, if we have started to put some metadata around the data to contextualize the data, I think today we will be able to build such a powerful AI model that we can solve a lot of things. So that would be my message.
Okay. Well, now we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. I see a couple hands already, and I believe we'll have a microphone that we can run around. Okay, got a mic over there.
Thank you. So basically, I think it's my question is for Mark. What kind of protection are you doing against the infrastructure itself? Because as a software engineer, if it's for myself as well, it's easy to focus on just the software part. But just considering any smart lock, the easiest way usually is not through the software breaking it, but just physically using a cheapest tool to actually open the lock and enter. So what kind of mitigations are you doing with the infrastructure? Because I understand in a factory, it's easy to just place a security personnel at the entrance, and that solves most of the problems. But the tracks are out on the plane, so.
Yeah, to answer your question, thank you for the question, by the way. Numerous is the easy answer, right? So let me just provide just a couple of quick examples. First and foremost, we right-size our software. So since you're a software engineer, we can talk this way, and hopefully the rest of the audience will come along with me. For things like let me go back to a signaling system. What kind of processor do you need for that? Now let me give you the answer. We use an 8-bit processor for that. It has 256 bytes of RAM, 512 bytes of E² memory. Okay? It is a 200 nanometer die process. The processor probably used more power than an i3. Okay? But it's an 8-bit processor. When you're writing code in assembly language, by the way, how do you then understand the boundaries? Absolutely. There's no compiler, there's no interpretation, there's no interrupts per se. I mean, the code you're executing is the code you're executing. In fact, the die that we use is even gamma ray proof, right? Because the same damn processor we use is the same one they send up in spacecraft. Actually, yeah, spacecraft up to shuttles and things. So that is one way. You don't need to run Linux and do all this stuff, inviting more problems because of a library using from here or a distribution using from there. Right-size the thing. So that's number one. Number two, it's not just our job. It's not my job just as a software engineer or now a solutions architect working on my product. No. It's an ecosystem. There's a lot of people now in the mix, right? And most importantly, by the way, our customer. Our software needs to meet their standards just as much as it needs to meet our standards. So they may require additional tests that are not part of our process, but that is absolutely completely important because even though I am this, as you suggested, I'm now a part of this whole other thing. It's not just my software, it's my software and working with everybody else too. So it's kind of kind of in stages, right? Right size it, number one, I'd say, to answer your question. And number two, you got to understand the customer and your part in the world.
Anybody else have a response?
No, I think that was more for.
Okay. Another question?
Thank you for your time. None of you have mentioned compliance with regulations, or you as a regulator to your suppliers. Can you abound around that?
I think I can take it. This recent example of simple digital solutions, which are just the app working with ERP. Surprisingly enough, in one of the countries, we had to approve the usage of the app, which is making life easier, and you're kind of you're saving your time as an employee. We had to approve it with the union because they were concerned if this app is collecting some personal data, and if it is compliant with GDPR, and if we are not collecting some data that actually is personal and can be in a way used against employees. And when we started our pilot with AI assistant in manufacturing, we had one of the ideas we had is actually to have cameras in the critical areas that it can see things we cannot see, maybe slow more or more detail, something inside the machines and inside technological process that we couldn't see. There was also a lot of discussions like, what if employees will be in that area and they will be visible as well. So there was, we didn't yet go for that solution, but for sure in that case we would need a trusted software that will kind of exclude and cut off the images of the employees and so on. Yeah, quite some compliance topics inside and actually outside of the organization.
Yeah, and if I can complement, so at Volvo we are implementing a lot of tracking technologies. So for each new use case we have a GDPR compliance to, and sometimes it could be challenging. So sometimes we have to find some workaround, we have to find some trade-off, and each time we have to explain how we will use the data, and also build some system to be able to remove the data, to be sure that we will not expose any personal data. So yeah, compliance is part of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes we don't know exactly where panel discussions go, but compliance is paramount. So if I didn't bring it up, I apologize, because it's absolutely paramount. But compliance for us, we have, not only do we have in the United States the Federal Railway Administration, they have a bunch of standards that you have to meet, obviously as we're moving critical cargo. And also, obviously in Europe, we have EN standards like 5155, which is specifically written for rail traffic, specifically written for rail traffic. So yes, we have to meet those standards and comply with those. I would liken it to this, and I don't want to minimize it. Yes, compliance is a big piece of work that we have to do to make sure our products meet it. However, for us, it's just such a natural part of the way we develop our systems and architect our systems. It's almost like we're not even thinking about it. It's just natural because it's a part of our process. We know how to architect design systems for our customers that are going to meet those standards already. It's already kind of built into your mind. Just like if you can imagine a freight locomotive, there's so many suppliers that have tried to put things on a freight locomotive and the boxes just completely obliterate and break. And one of the problems is because there's such a low frequency. I mean, it's basically a power plant on wheels. So you can imagine the traction motors, the diesel motor all running, and there's such a low vibration, capacitors just fly off, blah, 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 because they're not used to doing it, right? So that might not necessarily be written into a compliance spec. Yeah, you want your equipment to last longer than a month or two. But again, I'm bringing it up just because it's such a natural part of our design process. We know to lay the capacitors down. We already know that if we need to have one for a power supply, et cetera. It's just such a natural part that it's like, yeah, but obviously compliance for us is huge. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and not just cybersecurity compliance, it sounds like, but also some of the compliance that you have to do for food tracing, for parts, points of origin and other things. Yeah, exactly. Okay, another question. We have one over here.
Hi, thank you very much. It's been very insightful. I wanted to extend on the notion of compliance and pivot slightly to due diligence. When, one, you're looking at your own supply chain, all the different regulations and standards that have recently come into place in various countries, but also when you yourself are forming part of another company's supply chain. Are you finding particular themes or challenges, or has it enabled you to be agile and pivot and approach problems different ways when a particular customer or supplier wants to instill a standard that you may or may not quite meet fully? Thank you.
Good question.
So yeah, if I can take it, if I can start. You are talking here about interoperability between different supply chain, and that's really, for me, that's a key element of the Industry 4.0. But unfortunately, for the moment, there's no simple bridges to do that, and that's definitely a big area where we have to work on. And at Volvo, we are building a big tracking platform, and the next question will be, how can we expose some API for our suppliers to give information, and also the other way, how we can get information from our suppliers. And we are just at the beginning of the journey, I have to say.
This aspect is very important for us on the angle of food safety that we touched before. And we used to say that the outlet, the bar, is the last mile to the consumer. And but we are as a manufacturer, we are probably the second last mile, because what is inside the packed product, this is our full responsibility for that. And it is actually our responsibility to make sure that all the materials and the ingredients we use are safe. Starting from packaging material, even sometimes things you maybe don't even think of, the grease that you use for maintenance should comply to certain standards. And then we have raw materials, grains, malt. And this is a question of how can you control your suppliers. For sure, we analyze all the incoming materials. But you almost can't make complete analysis of everything. So your control is always, in a way, selective, except of a few cases where you have a permanent sensor and a permanent kind of flow of certain substance or media. But in the real world, it is more or less selective. So this is one way of still having strong entrance control of the incoming materials. And another way is to audit the suppliers independently. They for sure get audited by the state authorities, by companies which make food safety certification and so on. But we audit them as well, because in the end we are responsible for food safety.
Yeah, not sure if I'm going to add much to this, but didn't all of us get really rocked by supply chain about 5 years ago? And I say that, it's like, yeah, COVID was 5 years ago. It seems like it might have been 2 years ago. But anyway, Wabtec is a Fortune 500 company. We've got employees all over the world. In fact, we've got employees in 100 different countries supporting our customers in the rail business. So not only do we make freight locomotives in the United States, we make them also in places like India and Brazil as well. So for us, it gets to be more complicated just because we do have we got customers all over the world. We've got multiple manufacturing sites. We got multiple organizations getting parts from various places in order to build a product, again, in various places. So the easiest answer for me to give is supply chain is, and if we didn't figure it out 5 years ago, supply chain is huge. Because we have to, if you're building a locomotive that's $3.5 million and you're waiting for a part that is $2 and you can't ship, come on, right? And you guys won't see that in the newspapers, by the way, because we do a very decent job of managing it. But you can imagine, the United States was big news. Ford pickup trucks, they couldn't ship the auto start-stop feature. So for 9 months, because they couldn't get a particular part, those trucks just shipped off the line without the auto start feature, and they gave you a $50 credit or something. I don't remember what it was. So yeah, supply chain for us is critical. Multiple organizations that manage it, not only in the United States, but all across the world.
Okay. Probably have time for one or maybe two more questions. Who's got one? I don't see any. I think maybe there's one in the back over there. I'm blinded by the light on stage. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks for this interesting discussion. I think it's one of the first sessions I noticed today that is not totally talking about technology and technology solving all our problems or causing all our problems, either from possibility or more the security perspective. I'm quite interested in how you're looking at maybe the weakest link and the greatest asset of companies, the people.
I missed it. What did
he asked, maybe you could just repeat that closer to the mic so we
Last
can hear
part,
better.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. A lot of companies are looking now at technology as their greatest asset, but also the biggest threat in their organization. But how about the people in the organizations? How do you look at them being an asset and a threat in the same time?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer. I think naturally, obviously your employees are good people and they're not threats, right? That's a simple answer. But on the other hand, we've got, whether it's contractors are coming in, employees that maybe aren't as experienced with the software, they're a threat and they don't even know it, right? Can you imagine if somebody that's possibly, let's say they're newer to your company and they're not used to writing cybersecurity software, they're not used to writing safety critical software. Well, they just messed up the software. I guess you could call them a threat because that's what they did. It wasn't intentional. But what procedures, what processes do you need to have in place in order to make sure that those things don't happen? And I think as a part of any design that you do, I wouldn't necessarily call your employee a threat, but you do things in such a way and you have a process in place that even if they make a mistake, that mistake isn't translated and goes to the customer. So.
It's a bit of a similar approach, and the first food safety systems were actually developed by NASA for astronauts to make sure that they do not get poisoned, and then it went into the food industry. And I would say threat is not the right word. Probably risk. There are risks associated with people. And it's all about having right competences, right training, right certification required for the job. But as well as Mark mentioned, there are other ways of controlling it. You educate and certify the staff on one end. On another end, you still have critical control points. It's the official name in the food safety standards. You have critical control points where you measure, you monitor that the output of a technological process is as it should be and is safe for the customer.
And I have the same kind of answer because I'm used to deploy new IoT solution, and each time the technology is not the main issue. I mean, people is the biggest thing. So we have always to do a change management when we are implementing new solutions, and cybersecurity awareness is part of this change management. So yes, we know it's key in the cybersecurity to control the cybersecurity risks.
Good. And no one mentioned firing all of the employees so that you have no risk in replacing them with artificial intelligence. So I think that's a positive thing for 2025 panel. All right. Well, thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you for the audience. Thank you to the conference for having us up here. And we will now hand it over to the next group that will be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.